What if your grandfather's car knowledge was worth more than a degree in automotive engineering? What if the reason your ancient Honda still runs, while newer cars break down every year, isn't random luck? It's because someone taught him something the industry doesn't want you to know? There's a peculiar reality about modern vehicles that nobody talks about. We've been sold on the idea that cars are impossibly complex machines that require expensive diagnostic computers, specialized training, and dealer visits every time a warning light flickers. Your phone got smarter, your thermostat got smarter, but somehow your car became so complicated that you can't even check your own oil without feeling like you need an MIT degree. That's the story they want you to believe, but your grandfather lived in a different era, an era when cars actually lasted and repairs didn't cost what a used car costs today. He knew 12 things about keeping a car alive that have basically disappeared from common knowledge. And here's the thing, they're not complicated, they're actually the opposite. I'm about to reveal what those 12 tricks are, but before I do, understand this. The automotive industry has a massive financial incentive for you not to know these things. When you understand what your car is telling you, you prevent problems before they happen. When you prevent problems, you don't need expensive repairs. When you don't need expensive repairs, dealerships and mechanics lose millions in revenue. So these techniques got quietly pushed out of cultural memory, replaced by computer diagnostics and warning lights, and the expectation that you'll simply take your car to someone else when something feels wrong. The first trick sounds deceptively simple, but it's where everything starts. Before you ever check your battery, transmission, coolant system, or anything else on your car, you need to understand engine oil in a way most modern drivers completely ignore. Picture this. Your grandfather parked on level ground, let the engine cool for a few minutes, then grabbed the dipstick. But, and this is crucial, he didn't just look at where the level sat. He observed the color. He rubbed a tiny amount between his fingers. He smelled it. He felt whether it was gritty or smooth. This wasn't superstition. Oil does something nobody really talks about anymore. It doesn't just lubricate moving metal parts. It's a messenger. It carries heat away from critical components. It suspends contaminants that would otherwise scratch and damage the engine's interior. It protects. And by the time your dashboard warning light comes on about low oil pressure, damage is already happening. Your grandfather knew that a single-minute inspection could reveal problems months before they became disasters. He caught engine sludge, bearing wear, coolant contamination, and metal particles, all by using his senses instead of waiting for a computer to tell him something was catastrophically wrong. The second technique is equally underrated because it requires you to actually pay attention to something your car is constantly telling you. It's smell. Most modern drivers have learned to ignore unexpected odors. They roll down the window and keep driving. Your grandfather never did that. If a smell suddenly changed, especially a sharp gasoline smell that appeared without warning, he stopped immediately and investigated. This wasn't paranoia. This was understanding that your nose sometimes notices problems before any electronic system does. A loose fuel cap, a hairline crack in a fuel line, a leaking injector, or a failing fuel pressure regulator. All of these create distinct smells that happen before a warning light ever appears. Some modern cars have advanced emission systems designed to catch certain problems, but your olfactory system still works better than most people realize. It's a free diagnostic tool that's been running since the day you were born. Now, imagine for a moment that you could hear your car's internal state the same way a doctor listens to your heartbeat. That's essentially what your grandfather did every single time he started his engine, and before he even turned on the radio. He listened. A healthy engine has a relatively consistent sound, a familiar rhythm that doesn't change. But when something begins failing, the sound changes. You might hear a new ticking that wasn't there yesterday, a squealing that suggests a belt is starting to slip, a grinding that indicates metal-on-metal contact, a knocking that comes from the engine block, a rattling from loose components. The specific diagnosis doesn't matter as much as the recognition that something changed, because virtually every mechanical failure follows the same pattern. It starts small. A belt squeals for weeks before it snaps. A bearing hums before catastrophic failure. A loose bolt rattles long before it falls out and damages something critical. Your grandfather didn't need expensive computerized diagnostics. He simply knew what normal sounded like, which many recognized abnormal immediately. Here's something that'll shock you. Your car's battery can be in perfect health and still act like it's dying. Completely. The culprit? Corrosion. Picture this. Battery terminals that look corroded or crusty, creating a barrier between the battery and the electrical system. A weak connection means the battery can't deliver power effectively. Symptoms appear immediately: sluggish cranking, intermittent starting. Problems, flickering lights, strange electrical behavior. People spend thousands replacing batteries that were actually fine, simply because corrosion interrupted the connection. Your grandfather maintained these terminals regularly. He knew that before you replace an expensive component, Sometimes the answer is as simple as cleaning the connections and ensuring proper contact. It's the kind of preventive knowledge that saved enormous amounts of money. Tire pressure is something almost nobody checks correctly anymore. Modern drivers look at their tires and think, they look fine, then continue driving. Your grandfather understood something fundamental. Tires change pressure based on temperature. Driving heats the tire rubber, which temporarily increases internal pressure. That's why checking pressure when tires are cold, before any driving, gives you the actual reading. But here's the broader insight. A tire can look completely normal to your eye while being dangerously underinflated. The maximum pressure printed on the tire's sidewall, that's not what you should aim for. That's the absolute maximum that tire can handle. The correct pressure is specified elsewhere, usually on a label inside your driver's door or in the owner's manual. That specification exists because your vehicle's weight, suspension setup, and design require precise tire. Pressure for safety and tire longevity. Your grandfather knew that 5 minutes spent checking tire pressure could prevent blowouts, improve fuel efficiency, and extend tire life by years. Tire rotation gets overlooked by modern drivers because it seems obvious and therefore unnecessary. But here's what happens on most vehicles. Front tires experience more steering stress and braking force than rear tires. This creates uneven wear patterns. If you never rotate them, front tires become bald while rears still have tread, leading to replacement of perfectly good tires while others get another year of life. Your grandfather rotated tires regularly because he understood that preventing uneven wear meant all tires lasted longer. He didn't just trust appearances either. He examined the tread patterns himself, looking for unusual wear on the edges, strange patterns developing, or certain areas wearing faster than others. A tire isn't just rubber. It's your car's only contact with the road. Understanding how it wears tells you something about your vehicle's alignment, suspension, and braking patterns. Here's a visual you've probably never stopped to consider. Most people replace their windshield wipers when they completely fail during a rainstorm. Your grandfather would have considered that insane. Rubber deteriorates. Sunlight, heat, freezing cold, constant flexing, and exposure to environmental chemicals slowly destroy wiper blades. Eventually, they don't clear water effectively. They smear it across glass. During a heavy rainstorm, that transforms visibility into a genuine safety crisis. Your grandfather's rule was simple. If the blade starts skipping, streaking, or leaving large areas untouched, don't wait for catastrophic failure. Replace it. Don't wait for the next storm to teach you this lesson through reduced visibility on a highway. A small replacement costs almost nothing compared to a collision caused by visibility problems. Now here's a trick that seems almost too simple, but it's remarkably effective. Before your grandfather started his car, he'd physically look underneath it, not with any technical knowledge necessarily, just observing. Picture this. Is there a fresh spot on the pavement that wasn't there yesterday? Sometimes the answer is nothing. Air conditioning condensation creates harmless water drips. But fresh oily residue, colored fluid, or any unusual liquid that appeared suddenly, that's information. Your grandfather didn't need to identify every fluid by sight. He simply recognized when something new appeared. That change, that single observation, could be the earliest warning of a developing leak. And catching a leak when it's just a small drip costs infinitely less than running a system dry and destroying it completely. The dashboard warning lights on your car aren't suggestions. They're not decorative elements to ignore. Your grandfather's mentality was straightforward. If a light appears, find out what it means. Some warnings are minor, a loose gas cap, for example. Others indicate problems that should be addressed immediately. The dangerous assumption modern drivers make is this. If the car still drives and sounds normal, the warning must not be serious. That's backwards thinking. A car can continue moving while serious problems develop silently underneath. That engine overheating light? It means heat is already building. That oil pressure warning? Pressure is already dropping. That transmission temperature light? Your transmission is already hotter than it should be. Your dashboard is giving you real-time feedback about your vehicle's state. Using that information is fundamental maintenance. Older drivers understood something critical about engine cooling that modern drivers have forgotten. Heat destroys engines, not gradually, catastrophically. That's why experienced drivers monitored their cooling system obsessively. They watched coolant levels. They inspected hoses and belts for cracks or damage. They paid attention to the temperature gauge. If temperature started climbing higher than the normal operating range, they didn't ignore it. If coolant level kept dropping mysteriously, they investigated. They understood that a single overheating episode can sometimes be survivable, but repeated overheating causes permanent damage. Cylinder heads warp, gaskets fail, engine blocks crack. What starts as a concerning overheating incident can become a thousands of dollars repair nightmare. Here's a subtle maintenance trap that almost nobody recognizes. Constantly using your car exclusively for short trips. Imagine this, starting the engine, driving for 5 or 10 minutes, then turning it off, repeating this pattern constantly. The problem? Engines and their supporting systems are designed to Reach normal operating temperature and maintain it for meaningful periods. When you only take short trips, the engine never reaches optimal operating conditions. Moisture accumulates in places that would normally evaporate during longer drives. Engine oil never circulates fully. The battery never recovers from the power drain of starting. These patterns slowly damage systems, designed for different usage. Your grandfather understood something modern. Drivers forget. Cars aren't appliances that simply turn on and off. They have operating parameters. They need sufficient time at temperature to function optimally. But the most crucial trick, the one that supersedes all others, is something your grandfather possessed that most modern drivers have completely lost: intimate knowledge of his own car. He knew exactly how it sounded when it started. He knew how the steering felt. He knew how the brakes responded. He knew the engine sound at idle during acceleration, under load. He noticed immediately when something felt different. That wasn't supernatural ability, that was attention. He had created a baseline, a reference point for normal. That allowed him to recognize abnormal with precision. This knowledge functioned as preventive maintenance because the earliest detection system isn't always a computer or a warning light. Sometimes it's someone who actually knows their vehicle intimately. Modern vehicles are technological marvels: sensors, computers, electronic controls, systems your grandfather couldn't have imagined. But here's what technology can't replace: human awareness. A warning light tells you something is wrong, but attention sometimes catches problems before the warning light ever activates. And that's the real lesson behind these forgotten techniques. Your grandfather wasn't necessarily more skilled as a mechanic. He simply understood that prevention is infinitely cheaper than repair. He maintained small problems before they exploded into expensive crises. He listened, he observed, he checked, he prevented. Think about this. The most expensive car repair is always the one you don't see coming, the one you could have prevented with 5 minutes of attention. The automotive industry profits when you don't know these things. When you're uninformed, you need dealers, you need expensive diagnostics, you need specialized repairs. When you know what secret vault is showing you, when you understand what your car is actually telling you, you can intercept problems early. You save thousands. You extend your vehicle's lifespan dramatically. Your grandfather knew this, and maybe that's why some of those old cars actually did last forever.